What is up, everyone? Murder Metal Mayhem live for you here on a Sunday. And I think from reading those comments already, I think you guys are ready for it. I know I am. So let's get it started. All right. How's it going, everybody? Seeing all of the familiar faces showing up in the chat, and that's good to see. Welcome, everybody, and good to be with you here on a Sunday afternoon. I know before I got sick this summer, we were doing these every Sunday at 4 o'clock Central, and I'd like to keep that going. May adjust the schedule, but with the overwhelming majority of the people here being female, I'm thinking that we might be okay with it being football season on a Sunday. I don't watch it anymore, but if that is an issue, we may have to adjust. But for now, let's figure on 4 o'clock on Sunday. But hopefully that doesn't mess up your plans. But we're here today and anxious to get with you guys and talk about this. My parents were here this week for a visit, or last week, I should say, and had a really great time with them. And it was nice to just kind of relax and bask in the medical drama being over with, at least for the most part. Still recovering here at home, but it was a really good visit. But once they left on Thursday, I kind of thought, all right, now here we go back. I was anxious to get myself back into a somewhat of a routine, and so that's why I wanted to set this one up with you and my friend A.R. Hayes and I with our other channel, Darkness Visible True Crime. We got some live set up there. We'll get into that here today. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Got a guest or a viewer, supporter of the channel, won the contest to be with me today for some of this conversation, and so that'll be great. Ginger Peoples, that'll be awesome. I see my mom is in the chat, so you guys better be nice today. Can't be getting my mom upset, but yeah, it was a good visit, Mom. All right, so we've got a schedule to keep here. You guys know I don't mess around. So I would like to do that on occasion, or maybe somewhat regularly if it goes well today, to have you guys come on with me if you want to get on and talk. I know not everybody wants to do that, but I had done some videos with Blogger Girl in the past. You guys probably remember those. I'd love to do something like that. So maybe we'll do a contest for a video like that, because I'm thinking about doing one on Delphi, kind of a primer, catch everybody up on the case here as we enter within a couple months that trial's starting. So I would like to maybe do something on Delphi. So I'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, and I'm working on a guest for next Sunday. I'll keep you posted. Right now, I haven't heard back from the person I reached out to, but I will let you know. But if that works out, that would be great. And if it doesn't work out for next Sunday, I'm sure it'll be Sunday coming up soon, because we had talked about doing some stuff before I got sick. And it's weird here, just the beginning of the summer seems like ages ago, even though it's only been a couple of months. But I was gone for a while. Now today I plan on sticking around for about an hour to 90 minutes or so. I do have, like I said, quite a few topics I'd like to get to. I do want to spend some time on the Idaho 4 case. And I know that, I've talked about this on the Darkness Visible channel with AR, that, the Idaho 4 case has been really beaten to death, pun intended, uh, with channels just going over stuff and going over stuff. So I really don't want to get into that kind of thing. But there are some things I think would be interesting to talk about. And that's what Ginger's going to talk with me about when we do that here in a few minutes. So that'll be cool. But most of the subscribers to this channel are into the Idaho 4. And I mean, let's be honest, I do this channel for my own enjoyment because I love true crime and I love talking about it. But I also do it for you because if I wasn't doing stuff you wanted to watch, you wouldn't be here, right? And so that would be selfish of me to just talk about topics that nobody wants to hear about, because then it'd just be me here talking to myself. So I am going to talk about Idaho 4, but as long as I can find stuff to talk about that interests me, I'm not just going to be phoning it in because I don't like to do that. So if I don't feel like there's anything worth talking about, I'm not going to get into it. But as I sat and prepped for this live today, I did think of some things that I think would be interesting. And some of them were driven by comments I saw here just recently in the community tab on the page, as well as in the comment section of the video I posted yesterday about peeing in the jury pool. So if you missed that, you might want to go check it out. But so I want to make sure that we're doing stuff that interests you guys. I get into a lot of questions. People ask me about my health and how things are going. So I thought I'd just let you know. Each day I get a little bit stronger. Um, I'd like to at least get to doing a couple of videos, 2 videos a week on this channel, plus the live on Sunday, like we talked. I'm also going to be doing 2 lives a week with AR Hayes on our Darkness Visible True Crime channel. So if you have not subscribed to that, at last I checked, we were just passing or right at around 600 subscribers. We need to get to 1,000 if we're going to monetize that channel. So if you haven't done that, go to Darkness Visible True Crime and subscribe, and that will help us get to that goal. We're going to be doing a live on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central on that channel, only on that channel. It will not be here, and it won't be on AR's channel, A Convict's Thoughts. So you need to go to the Darkness Visible True Crime channel to see it. I have been released from physical therapy, so that's good. I met all my goals. I do walk with a cane part-time. The rest of the time I'm able to walk slowly but unassisted. So the pain that I'm in is manageable, and huge, huge thanks to my beautiful wife, Jenny, for helping me and tending to the wound dressings and all the different daily demands that this has put her in. So I appreciate that. She's just been amazing. Now, don't forget to be civil to each other in the chat. We've got multiple mods out there ready to pounce. If you want to act stupid, you'll be put in timeout and you're done. So, not going to play that game here today at all. We never do. And thankfully, I don't have any problems with that kind of stuff. So, that's great. But they're going to be out there. AR Hayes is in the mix as a mod. We've got several of them. They're the mods of mayhem, and we drama free. That's what me and AR always talk about: drama free and no nonsense. They're instructed that if there's any of that, boom, they're gone. Okay, so let's have some fun and get some good back and forth going. And in about 15, 20 minutes, we'll be joined by our viewer who won the contest. So Ginger, if you're listening, be ready here in a few. Get you in the mix, and we'll talk about some Idaho 4. She is a subscriber to this channel. She's a mod of Mayhem as well. And I just used the random number generator for those that were interested in doing that with me today. And that's how I picked her. So next time I do this, keep your ears and your eyes open and get in on it if you want. And I'll use the random number generator to pick the winner. So no favoritism here. So but don't forget to like this video. If you haven't already done so, hit that like button. If you're on the replay crew, thank you. Appreciate you guys watching as well. But go ahead and drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. I'm closing in on 10,000 subscribers. So help me get to that milestone and subscribe today to Murder Metal Mayhem. All right. Now, before we get started with the discussion today, I would love to know what true crime cases you guys are interested in, because I'll tell you what, I did a video on Sarah Boone. I think that's a fascinating case. And I got only, I don't know, a few hundred views on that one. So I don't know if that's just not interesting to you guys. There's so many different cases out there. I hope to get some feedback from you so I would know which ones you're the most interested in. Anything I've done other than Idaho 4, and I know this is the same with AR, with Lucky, any of the other creators I've talked about since I've been doing this, it's the same with all of us. If it's not Idaho 4, the response is fairly lukewarm at best. So I'd love to know, is it Delphi? Are you interested in Delphi? I've had a few viewers say that they were not interested in Delphi, but checked it out at my request from last week when we talked about this on the that wasn't last week. It was the last time I did a live. I mentioned Delphi, and this person said, "Hey, I was not into it. I checked it out. I'm into it. It's super interesting. So thanks for letting me know about it." So if you're not familiar with that Delphi case, Richard Allen, go check it out. Donna Adelson, I mean, that's a good one. And that whole saga with the Adelson family, and Charlie's already been convicted, and now she's next up on the chopping block. Robert Tellis, that's a fascinating one from AR's neck of the woods there in Las Vegas. You got Karen Reed in Boston. You got the Alex Murdaugh retrial, and all of this stuff going on. So let me know in the chat which cases you're interested in. If you're on the replay crew, put it in the comments so that this way it helps me steer the ship into what you guys are most interested in for me to do as 666 seconds videos and in the Sunday lives. Another one I didn't mention in that group is the Austin serial killer. That one is fascinating. That's an ongoing one. So all these ones I'm mentioning are all current cases where stuff is going on. So these should be interesting to all of us. So very good. Well, do we have any early questions? I know that I don't see Ginger in the waiting room here. So Ginger, if you're listening, go on and log in, and I'll tap dance for a minute, give you a chance to get here. But it looks like just kind of scanning through the comments to see what cases you guys are interested in. I did see somebody mention Delphi for sure. I mean, it's wilder than the Idaho 4, honestly. There's more going on, and I know that may be hard to believe if you're a hardcore Idaho 4 follower. I'm telling you, the case with Delphi is more messed up than that. It really is. You've got the corrupt police. You've got a person that's in custody that people feel is not the person that did this. You've got all kinds of stuff going on that are very similar to the Idaho 4. In this case, though, there were investigators that were murdered. There was one gunned down in front of an FBI office, if you can believe that, and another one in a suspicious home arson death that was part of this case. I think she was the lie detector test administrator for one of the early suspects. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with Delphi. Let's see here. Any others? Several Delphi. Lots of people saying hi to each other, so that's awesome. I think it's a great community here that we've got. Good to see everybody, getting along and saying hello to each other, and that's really cool. But yeah, I'm not seeing any other. Oh, I see my buddy Ray McFalls, a good friend of mine. We were in Army basic training together. That's going back a couple of years, huh, Ray? Maybe 30, 32 years or something crazy like that. But yeah, the Rainy Street Ripper case, the Austin serial killer, that's definitely one that we're going to talk about in the discussion today, because that's a fascinating case. Still in the news, still a lot going on with that one. So very cool. All right. Well, I'm not seeing Ginger in the waiting room here, so I am going to forge on. If she joins us, I'll get her in there. But for right now, I need to get to business here. So the first thing I wanted to talk about with the Idaho 4 is the media bias. Okay. Now, I referenced this in a video I did yesterday. I talked about this a moment ago, peeing in the jury pool. Okay. Because while I was in the hospital, I pretty much just was completely unplugged. I did not have my cell phone for about the first month to 5 weeks or so. I was intubated for 2 weeks, so I wasn't talking to anybody at that point. But even after that, my wife was smart. She kept my cell phone from me because she knew that I wasn't all there, coming out of those heavy duty drugs they had me under to stay intubated for that long. And so I didn't have my cell phone. So I wasn't able to watch YouTube, check email, which was fine. I mean, honestly, I didn't even miss it. Other than not being able to talk to a few of my close friends and family. But thankfully I was getting visits and all that. But I was unplugged. Oh, here's Ginger. Here she goes. All right. She must have heard me and said, let me get to there. So there she is. What's up, Ginger?
Hey, how is everybody?
We're all doing good, and I'm glad that you're here because we just started talking some Idaho 4, and
Yes, absolutely. I was listening. Sorry, I was in the bathroom. I'm like, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom so bad. Please wait for me.
that's
So, no,
funny.
I'm here.
Good. Well, I don't know if you had a chance to check out that video I did on the peeing in the jury pool yesterday,
Yes,
but
I did.
talking about, how biased the media is in this Idaho 4 case, and everybody I talked to, first of all, I couldn't get over how clueless people were about this case. The rest of us live and breathe it. And there's people like I pointed out in the video, one guy thought it was in Iowa, not Idaho. And I'm just like, what? How is that even possible? Have you experienced anything like that?
I have actually. Now, I'm a traveling nurse, pretty much full time, and then part time. I work at a local restaurant here in my town. I'm in Wisconsin, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Um, so anyway, I sometimes will ask people because I see people from out of town and I just kind of know like when people are, kind of not from here because I live in a very rural area. So I'll be like, "Hey, do you guys, do you know anything about that, Idaho 4 case where that Koberger case where those, kids were, unalived?" And some people are like looking at me like I'm crazy. Like
Right.
I just like made this story up and I'm like, "You really have no idea what I'm talking about?" And they're like, "No, we've never heard of this." I mean, I've got one guy who like claimed to kind of, hear a little bit of something about it, but he thought that the trial was already said and done and that Koberger was already guilty. And
Wow. He
so,
might as well be in some people's minds, right? I mean, people think
yeah,
the people I talk to said, that the stalking thing, that was a common thread in just about everybody I talked to that even knew anything about it was he was stalking those girls. He was stalking the girls. And of course, we know that that was debunked in one of the hearings with Bill Thompson, right? I mean, he said no,
yeah,
that he wasn't. And yet, the media didn't correct the record, right? They just keep beating that drum. Nancy Grace and Ashley
yeah,
Banfield, they just don't care. I mean, they just keep talking about it like it wasn't, proven false. So that's frustrating. And,
for
you know,
sure.
it, it's amazing how Bill Thompson got all, upset, supposedly upset that Brian's, rights were being compromised, but yet he didn't make sure that that was corrected when people thought that he was stalking the girls.
Oh, I know. He is something else. I just like, man, that guy is just, that you probably know what I'm thinking. He's just out of his mind.
He
He's
needs to
just a nut.
retire. He needs to
Oh my
retire.
God.
He needs to
Yesterday
retire.
already.
Yeah,
Yes,
he
for
he
sure.
looks like one of those guys on the Vicks or what's that hall? It's a cough drop with a bunch of old time pictures on it, and the guys with these real long beards. He looks like one of those guys, but he needs to go
Yeah,
and
he is.
get some fresh blood in there. But yeah, and I'm not a fan of his either. But
No.
yeah, the media bias is obviously a problem because no matter where I mean, even if they move this trial to Boise or wherever, I mean, do you think Brian's going to get a legitimate fair shake here, or what do you think?
Um, you know, I personally think that it's just tainted. I mean, either way. I mean, I just don't think he's going to get a fair trial. I really just don't. You know, then again, there are so many different theories in this. It's crazy. So, but
Yeah,
yes, as far as that is concerned, even if they move it, I'm not sure. Although, like we do both agree that not a lot of people like are hearing of this. So, I've got people, like I said, I got people coming in the restaurant. They're from all over, from all over different states, and they just have no idea,
yeah,
about the case. So it's very possible. It depends on how, but he doesn't, they don't have a case. That's the problem. There's like
right.
nothing to convict him on, I don't think. I
Yeah,
personally think he's innocent. So, I mean, that's just my,
I started out thinking he was guilty because I didn't know that touch DNA wasn't the same thing as, full fledged, so to speak, DNA. I
yeah,
got educated on that. Then I realized it was a joke. And then I was like, well, I mean, I'm on the fence. I mean, he could certainly be guilty. He could certainly be innocent. I don't know. I mean, I don't have all this evidence in front of me. So who am I to say? But the more and more I see, the more and more I'm just not seeing it at all. And I'm just amazed, like I said, at this bias. And it is certainly concerning. But to me, it's very important to get the case out of Latah County because even though nationwide there's somewhat of a bias, as we've both pointed out here,
Mhm.
um, I think that the people in Latah County, I've mentioned this in other videos I've done before, it's a cut that Moscow, Idaho is like a combination of Twin Peaks, Children of the Corn, and The Sopranos.
Right.
That's what it is. Those people are like they're brainwashed. I mean, the University of Idaho rules the roost. Nobody's talking. I mean, the fact that something like that happened in
I
that
know.
town and not one person has come forward to say anything,
I
that's
know.
very telling.
It is very telling. It's very suspicious. It is like we had a quadruple homicide, well, actually more than a quadruple homicide occurred in October 7th of 2007 in a little town called Crandon, Wisconsin. And that whole town to this day still speaks about that police officer that murdered all those kids. You just cannot even go to that town and not know that that happened. So the fact
Wow.
that there are people, in Moscow, Idaho, who are not even, reaching out. I look in comments, I look at different creators, you, AR, Unfiltered Lucky, are my three faves. But I'm always trying to look in comments and nobody I never hear of anybody saying, "Oh, I'm from Moscow and I've heard of this case and this is what really happened," or, this is what, I think happened. It's just odd to me. Nobody's screaming, at the rooftop of what's going on in their hometown. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, in the town that I live in or near, there was an incident with a father murdering his children and his wife, and it was wall to wall. I mean, you listen to talk radio, and that's all they were
Yeah.
talking about. A person from the talk radio station, happened to write a book. I mean, the interviews with, people on the street. I mean, it was nonstop. And I can't imagine something like this happening in the town and not one person coming forward. It's kind of scary because you wonder, what is it keeping them quiet? Is it because they fear that what happened to those four kids could happen to them? If they open up their mouths, because I think the whole town kind of has an idea what happened here, but they don't want to say anything.
That's a really big possibility, considering that if, say if Koberger is being framed and is a patsy, and say, like, if the AB are involved or some, huge cartel, I personally probably wouldn't talk about that either. If I knew in my heart of hearts and I knew specifically 100% that that occurred, I probably wouldn't talk about that. I'd be scared out of my mind.
Right.
Would want to protect my family because, those are dangerous people.
Right. And like in the Delphi case, the first judge recused himself because he was scared to death when the Odinist
Yeah,
discussions were happening. And those early investigators felt that that was potentially the cause of the deaths of those two girls, was a ritualistic killing.
yeah,
And he recused himself. He was scared to death for his family. I mean, he didn't want any part of it, especially when
exactly.
one of them got gunned down in front of that FBI office, and the and the lady got murdered in a fire at her home. So very, very scary stuff. And I agree. I mean, most people are going to want to
Absolutely.
protect their families. I mean, it makes sense, but it's freaky,
Mhm.
the town of that size, that not one person really has come forward. I mean, WSU mom Kim, she's probably the closest we've come to somebody really speaking out about it. She went on
Yeah,
some of the talk show. She's a subscriber to my channel. I don't know if she's listening or watching, but she comments on a lot of my videos. I've begged her to let me interview her. I would love to do that. I'm sure she probably, for a variety of reasons, doesn't want to, and that's fine. But
Oh wow. I
she had the courage to come forward, and she's a member of the Horns High Club. She's a member of the channel, and she's a big supporter of what I do, and I appreciate that. But I mean, other than her, I don't know of anybody else that stepped forward. Do you know of anybody?
I don't. I personally have no idea. I remember when she talked a little bit, and I'm surprised that she only went to like one or two channels and, she talked with them. Maybe it was a couple more, but I really honestly don't know of anybody, who you could reach out to talk about this case who would have inside knowledge. Um, the DoorDash driver, if you possibly could figure out who that person is,
Right.
maybe, but as far as, there's so much speculation on that person as well that, you know, who knows who that is? You know,
Right.
I we're all investigating that. So, but no,
Right.
I really truly have no clue.
Yeah.
I
That's
and I
nuts.
don't know, I know, and I don't know anybody from that area either.
Right.
No family, nobody close to home, and no idea. I would just keep.
Yeah.
You did try. I was surprised. You did actually ask her, and she said she never contacted you.
Oh, I've reached
Or-
out multiple times when she's commented. I've responded to the comment and said, "Please email me. I'd love to talk to you." And she hasn't. I know she's done other ones, but
Yeah,
not mine. But that was a while back. I wanted to say thanks to Jackie Bushable. I think I'm pronouncing that right, for the super sticker there. That's very nice. And here's a cool one here. Oh, let me get it. Chat's moving pretty fast. Um, Got Victorine, a member for 3 months. So thank you very much. And she says, so glad you're back and love this channel. So thank you for that.
it's
That's very
awesome.
nice of you. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate the super stickers and all that. Certainly not required, but anybody that's doing that, thank you very much. If I don't catch you, I apologize, but I'm doing this by myself today, so I'm trying to keep up. But yeah, so the bias was one thing I wanted to talk about. So if you missed my video, peeing in the jury pool, it was posted yesterday. So check that out. Now, one thing I wanted to get to with you uh, is the fact that I've heard varying accounts of where Ethan was found. The PCA, which I subjected myself, so that's the sacrifice I make to this channel, is I subjected myself to reading that garbage that they wrote. But the PCA talks about him being found in the room, and that's all it says. He's found in the room with her, with Xana in the room. But we
Mhm.
we heard from through the grapevine that Hunter uh, found him, Hunter Johnson found him behind the door. He had to like push the door open, that he was like leaning with his back up against the door, is how I kind of gathered it. So that could still mean that he was in the room, of course, but you would think if that were the case, they would have pointed that out in the PCA. And then I've also heard rumor that he was in the hallway. So I'm just wondering, what do you know about? I mean, what do you gather with all that?
Well, in regards to the PCA now, I just really want to say I believe nothing that comes from the PCA. So you really have to, go through it really with a fine tooth comb. And I'm thinking this whole PCA thing is just a bunch of garbage. It's just a bunch of junk because, well, it's just how I feel. But in regards to where Ethan was found, I I don't know. I really almost think he was found in, the hallway area. I don't believe he was in the room, and you're talking to somebody who believes that this may not have even occurred in the home, that this possibly occurred outside.
A lot of people believe that. A lot of people do, and I've been kind of on the fence on it, to be honest with you.
Well, the reason why I personally do is because of, well, partially because of the Linda Lane footage and the
Right.
cameras and things like that, because I'm like, how can you hear, you know, we have cameras in our home, and things of that nature, but there's no way that unless a window was open, say a window was open, but you have to remember it's almost winter time, it's November. So it's cold, was a window open and, this stuff went down and this camera actually caught this footage of this happening? Or because I just don't, I believe that this happened outside and that they were actually placed inside. I don't
It's
believe
very
this
possible.
was.
It's very possible that that was staged like that. I mean, hell, they had 8 hours, right? And in
Yeah,
my opinion, they
exactly.
had more like 9 or 10 if you go off of where when I think this happened. I
And
think
I
that
too. Yes.
I think Ethan and Xana were murdered at about 2 o'clock or just after 2 o'clock. I mean, I've gone over a lot of this stuff before. So if you're new to this channel and haven't heard me talk about some of this stuff, I urge you to go to my Idaho 4 playlist and check out some of these videos, because I got a lot of flack for the video I did about were they watching this in a pay-per-view. And a lot of people thought I was out of my mind. But honestly, if you look at that grub truck video at a little bit after 2 o'clock, there's that group huddled around a phone and somebody's chanting Xana's name.
I know.
That's creepy. I mean, what the hell were they chanting her name for? I mean, it's not like Xana is a popular name, so I don't know how many Xanas there were at the University of Idaho, but it seems odd to me. And so that's why I believe that they were killed early, and then whoever did it laid in wait for the other two to get home at 3. And that's why I think it's very possible there were two waves of people that went over and did this. I don't know. I mean, there's so many possibilities. It's really endless. I mean, we could talk for hours about this one, but it just makes you wonder. It really does. And the whole Chapin family thing is just really, really bordering on creepy. I mean,
It's weird.
how in the hell do Ethan was a triplet, right? The other two were at the same party where he was before this happened, where the fight happened supposedly with Loach, and then an hour later, or a few hours later, this happens to him. So how does that not contribute to this? And how was he not put in a chair with a spotlight in his face and interrogated for hours until he told somebody something? So, money talks, and I get that, but still, I mean, a
I
fight
know.
happens right before something like this goes down, and you're not completely, this guy lawyered up and then scooted out of town, and with the rest of them, I mean, everybody left town but the one guy that they think did it. He stayed around and went to the coffee shop and went grocery shopping like it never even happened, but yet he's the one that they say is guilty. And everybody else, all these jokers, took off and never to
I
be
know.
seen again. It's unbelievable. It really
That
is.
is so crazy. Pete, every single theory actually fits this case, if you think about
Right.
it. Every
Yeah.
single, and that's what is so difficult about figuring out who actually committed this crime, because they all fit. Even
You're
the
right.
fit, even the even the theory of them being alive to some degree actually fits, even a small amount. Even the fact that, Koberger may not even be sitting in a jail cell and just as like a patsy in this, that could actually be the
Yeah,
case. It's
he could be at a
crazy.
Super 8 watching Showtime and get
You never know.
whisked to the Latah County courtroom. I don't know. I mean,
Yes,
nothing would
yes,
surprise me. I mean, honestly, I'm a
yes,
fiction writer. I'm a fiction
yes.
writer, and I'm just
You're
like,
an
whoa.
author.
I mean, if I wrote a story like this, people would think I was out of my mind. I mean, it's the craziest case. I mean, I've been following true crime
Yes,
since the 70s when I was a little kid. I've talked about this before. Son of Sam was prowling the streets in New York. Grandparents were there, and it was so. I've been following true crime for a long time. I did the Murder Metal Mayhem podcast for 7 years. We did 261 episodes. I have gone through true crime cases, and this is, other than Delphi, the craziest one yet. I do still firmly believe
yes.
Delphi is even crazier, but we're not talking Delphi, we're talking Idaho 4, but I think this one is fascinating, and like you said, any possibility. That's why I did my what I call the lambs to the slaughter theory, in saying that I can't rule anyone out. I can't rule out any of the people that have been talked about. All the Jacks.
I
We got
know.
a full house with the three Jacks and all these other jokers. I can't rule any one of them out. It almost is as if it was like an orchestrated event to have those four people in that house when this happened. And I know that sounds crazy. And I know Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually the one that's right. But,
True.
I mean, I don't see a simple explanation here. There's just too many crazy things. And I've never seen a case with so many suspicious people on the periphery. You've got an ex-boyfriend. You got a boyfriend of one of the girls that wasn't even in town conveniently, but he
I
was
know.
90 minutes away. So did he come back? Was that an alibi? Don't know. Another one of the frat boys, his dad had was worked for a professional cleaning business. Boy, isn't that convenient? Is that
Yeah,
why they only found three sources of DNA other than the nonsense on the knife sheath? I mean, how in the world in a party house, or anybody's house for that matter, anybody's house,
exactly.
are you only
Exactly.
going to find three unidentified male DNA? How is that even possible? It's not, unless you had somebody that knew how to professionally clean. I'm not talking about some idiot college kid with a roll of paper towels and a bottle of Windex. I'm talking about people that come in there and like know what they're doing, like these
Yeah,
professional places that do this. That's what his dad for a period of time worked for.
I read
So, I
that.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's insane. It really is insane. And
It
every
is.
one of them have lawyers in the family,
I
you know,
know. That's weird too to me. I'm like,
yeah,
where that is just insane.
it
But
is
yeah, you're
insane.
right. You're right. It is. It's like if you and I committed this quadruple homicide, I can tell you what, this case would not go the way that it's going. I
No,
mean, no
no,
way.
two average people, we'd be strung up and that'd be the end of it,
Yes,
right? But all
yes. It
these
was,
rich kids, I mean, I'm sure, the cops are like, well, shit, we can't talk to so and so because her uncle is the prosecutor in Kootenai County, so we can't talk to
yes.
Dylan. We can't talk to this one. And if they did talk to him, where's drip drop with the interrogation videos, right? Because we
Yes,
know drip drop is all about it. And I've yet to
yes.
see one. I mean, seriously, can you even think of a case where you don't see any police interrogation videos? I mean, that is like the lifeblood of true crime. the
Yes.
lifeblood. You get this fool in there straight off the street and
Yes.
put him in a room. I mean, A.R. Hayes can tell you what that's all about. You
Yep.
know, he talked about, we did a false confession podcast and I had him on as a guest, and he talked about being in the interrogation room for 20 hours. So,
I
I
know.
mean,
Yep.
that didn't happen to any of these people. And if it did, I'd sure love to see a damn video of it, or at
You know,
least the audio.
no, there, I'll tell you what happened with that. I talked to Andrew on that, and Andrew said, because I said to him, I asked him, I'm like, well, what happened to the interrogation video? Why wasn't Koberger interrogated? Well, guess what? He was, and they never filmed it.
That's what I've heard too. That's
That
ridiculous. That's
is,
ridiculous.
that's stupid. That is
That is
insane.
stupid.
That is
Yeah,
like, why would you not film?
right. Because
Everybody's got a camera.
that's setting themselves up for all sorts of legal problems with him saying he wasn't Mirandized. I mean, how do you know what the hell they did if nothing's on body cam? That's the other thing. No body
Exactly.
cam. No, I want to see a body cam of the
Hmm.
discovery of that knife sheath. That's what I
For
want to
real.
see. Because in my opinion, if you had a
Yeah.
body cam of it, it would have been in the trunk of Payne's car and been carried in with a garbage bag and
For
thrown in the
real.
house and go, oh, gee, look what I found. Duh. You know, I mean, seriously. I
No,
mean,
for real.
it's
I know.
it's absolute insanity. It really is. It's
It,
ridiculous.
it, it is. It's like these guys are a bunch of clowns. That's what it seems like. It's like people don't even know what they're doing. Like,
Right.
even the whole court process, the investigators, the law enforcement are like run by, I mean, oh my gosh, just some crazy, oh, they're just nuts. They just have no idea what they're doing. They're a bunch of clowns.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
It's like
shouldn't say that.
the bad news bears or something trying to solve a crime. I mean, it
Right.
is really crazy. And I don't know if you saw, I did a true crime deep cuts video, which is a longer video where I interviewed an Australian police officer who's
I
done
saw all of them.
a lot of true crime or a lot of crime scene investigations on murder cases and all of it. And he couldn't believe how screwed up this one was. I mean, just
I
one
know.
thing after another thing after another thing. I mean, it was like a bunch of buffoons trying to do this. And it's almost as if that's a distraction to get the true crime world talking about this. And maybe the feds have been the brain behind this whole thing. And they've been running some sort of, like, you know, we talked about, you know, parallel construction. Were
Yep.
they doing some sort of other investigation and let, you know, Payne and these other fools from Moscow, you know, draw the attention when they were doing another investigation? I don't know. I mean, it, like you
It's
said, it's
very possible.
anything is possible with this case. So yeah, I was just curious what you thought. I mean, the fact that the Chapins sent their kids back to that school, the Mr. Chapin is friends with Scott Green. So
Yeah.
this whole, it's this incestuous, just really bizarre arrangement with this. But I just have a lot of questions, and I don't know how in the world those kids would want to go back to that school after that happened. I mean, honestly, I would want to be as far away from that place as I possibly could. And then you also wonder, what did they see at that
Right.
Sigma Chi party? You know, what was it?
Right.
What was there? You know, was there anything that they observed? And are they keeping quiet because that's how the fraternities are? They keep it hush hush. You know.
Well, that's what it kind of actually seems like. You know, it seems like the person or persons or people who actually committed this, if this actually did occur, was, you know, somebody, it had to be like, I believe you have to follow the money. I believe
Oh
it's
yeah,
like money driven. Like these are powerful people. the Sigma Chi fraternity, that whole thing, these people have, an unbelievable amount of power, money, things of that nature. I think that people are scared of something, and that's why there's so much silence going on, and that this crime, that Koberger is just set up, as a patsy because somebody else committed this with more power. And, there's a narrative that law enforcement has to make up. They have to make up this story maybe, because, whatever happened was so great and so grand.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. And I mean, does that make sense that, if it were cartel or something ritualistic or something of that nature, I mean, nobody really wants to talk about that maybe. No, you have to, they're the ones that they're not going to be held accountable.
Right.
How could you hold those types of people accountable for that? Because they have such power in with, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I wondered, when they talked about in the very early stages of this crime that they knew that this was a targeted attack. So what led them to say that? Was there
mhm,
writing on the wall? I mean, I've seen that in dozens and dozens of true crime cases where the attacker puts it right
yeah,
on the wall, writes a message on the wall or leaves a note or some sort of indication of why they did what they did. So I wonder if that's the case, what could that possibly be? And could that really turn this thing on its ear? I mean, and then, we've
exactly.
heard, I know Lucky did a video on this, and we talked about this when I interviewed him months ago. Is that there was the earliest report, the first report from the scene from the local TV station said that there were 4 deceased and 1 in the hospital. And
I
that
remember that.
and that was the only mention of it. That has since been scrubbed. You cannot find that telecast anywhere.
Yeah.
And he's even got screenshots of one of his viewers messaging this reporter that did it. I can't remember her name.
Mhm.
And asked her, "Did you report that?" And she said, "Yes, I did." So it's not like it's BS. I didn't see it, but Lucky and lots of others have back in
Yeah.
the very, very beginning. So
It,
why is that sanitized and scrubbed? So who is that injured person? Was it a co-defendant? I know AR Hayes has brought that up with the potential of somebody being a co-defendant, and maybe that's the goods they got on Brian, is that maybe he was somehow involved and this person's gonna, testify against him for immunity or something like that. Who knows? I mean,
oh,
anything
that's
like we've been pointing out. I mean, literally anything is possible here. And
mhm.
so I don't really know.
That is interesting. I remember when Lucky did that video actually. And
Yeah.
I tried to look for that too, and I couldn't find that anywhere. I
No.
mean, Kaylee's LinkedIn account was actually scrubbed too. Some of
Yes.
her stuff. I'm like, what was on there that was so important that somebody would delete all that? How did somebody get
Mhm.
her password?
Yeah, that's
That's
very
another thing too.
suspicious. I was talking to AR Hayes about this the other night. I'll keep that to myself because he's going to do a video about it, but or maybe he has and I just haven't seen it yet. But yeah, that's also very suspicious. There's so many layers to this case. It's like an onion
Exactly.
that just keeps peeling, and it's rotten.
Mhm.
It's a rotten onion at that. Um,
Exactly.
I know we haven't gotten any questions yet. I've been kind of scanning the chat to see if anybody has a question. There's tons of comments, but I can't possibly read them all. So if anybody has a comment, oh, I just saw Mercy Cat, very nice, gifted 10 Murder Metal Mayhem memberships. So thank you very much for that. Um, I know that the Horns High Club, which is our membership here, I've only got one tier of members uh, on this channel, but I do a weekly message to them on the community tab that's just for them. Excuse me, and it runs down my itinerary for the week. What am I doing? Which videos coming out which day, when I'm recording, so everybody knows really what's going on behind the scenes. And then I also normally I post videos a few days or I upload them a day or two before they actually come out, so the members get to see them early. Now lately I haven't been able to do that because I've been trying to get back in the swing. I've been just uploading the videos when and making them live right away. So those of you that have been sticking it out in the Horns High Club and not getting the usual perks, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate that because that's something that's part of the membership, is to get that stuff and get it early. But you know, I'm looking here, just a random comment. This is a good one here. If your son or daughter was one of those kids that was murdered, would you be okay with the investigation? Hell no, I wouldn't.
No
Hell no,
way.
I would not. I mean, I don't understand how there's
Mm-mm.
not more outrage. You know, like my wife pointed out with the demolition of the house. I mean, why
Mm-hmm.
weren't the families like arm in arm in front of the site to make them, you know, to force the issue, get the media to point out this is absurd to tear this house down? Nobody
Yeah,
did that. They gave them permission. Yeah, sure, tear it down, whatever, no big deal. I mean, they're just
that,
way too complacent in this whole thing. I don't understand it. Even
I know.
Steve G, who has been very vocal, and you could say what you want about him. I've got my own opinions. I'll keep it to myself.
Me, me
But
too. I'm sitting
but
quiet on it.
even he has been relatively quiet, because I know I'd be screaming every day. I mean,
I
every day
would be
I'd be
too.
screaming about it.
I know
So
that, the Chapins, especially, but like you said, I mean, have a teenage girl who's ready to go to college. If I knew that this happened to, her brother or sister or whatever, there's no way I would send her back to school. Chapins, I can't figure out. I really can't. From a mother, I'm a mom, I'm almost 50 years old. I cannot wrap my mind around her thinking. I just can't. I can almost not even,
I
I
know.
can't fathom why she's so laissez-faire, about
Yeah.
everything,
The only thing is that if Mr. Chapin and Scott Green are buddies, maybe Scott
Well,
Green said, look, the optics of you not sending them back here is bad for business. Like you said, follow the money. Maybe
yeah.
it's like, hey, you know, just let the kids come back here. We'll forget the tuition, you know, that kind of thing. And money talks. I don't know. I mean, it's just one thing throwing out here. Another commenter here, Tony Stevenson, says families have stuff to hide. I mean, that's something I've pointed out. So weird in that house, of those 6 roommates, like 5 of them had families with a jaded history, criminal backgrounds,
Yeah.
drug trafficking, like hardcore stuff. We're not talking about, you know, a little bit of weed in the back seat with a hitter rod. We're talking about like suitcases full of meth. I mean, like crazy stuff. Okay. And
Mhm.
that just seems very odd that all of them would be in that house. I almost thought maybe there's some sort of, like, they were there to be kept an eye on. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many layers to this case. And it's been a few months since I've really explored some of this stuff. But as you and I are talking, more and more of it's kind of coming to the surface. And I'm just
Yeah.
thinking this is just really strange, you know?
Well, I mean, I you have to look at the drug theory as being like very practical and realistic because in reality and in the real world, I mean, drugs are a huge thing for sure. I mean, and the fact that Xana's mom was, she wasn't convicted on her drug charges. She was actually let go of those. She would be like sitting in prison for a really long time. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, who, like, does it have to do with her supplier? Like, who, did something happen with her and did she owe somebody money? Is this like a hit gone bad type deal?
It's very
Like,
possible. It makes you wonder because both Maddie and Xana's mothers had drug
yeah,
charges that were mysteriously either dropped or very, very lightly punished. And it
yeah,
certainly makes you wonder what was going on there. Did they snitch?
mm-hmm.
And we know the phrase there with that. Here's another good one that Eyes on Heaven posted early in the chat. I saved it. The white Elantra. I mean, my gosh, the big deal they made about the white Elantra and the fact that someone had a white Elantra, Jack Decor did, or his dad owned it, but I think he drove it and he sold it right after the murders happened. So that's certainly suspicious. I mean, he
Yeah,
is an incredibly suspicious person in the eyes of a lot of people that follow this case. Anytime
correct.
I've done videos on Jack Decor, Dylan, or Jack Showalter, those are the ones that seem to get the most views. I mean, people just I mean, Jack was the ex-boyfriend of
Yeah,
Kaylee. So coming off 3 weeks of a breakup, somebody you went out with for 5 years and in their short lives, that's a long time. So, 5 years of a relationship and then she's leaving to go to Texas, taking their dog with them. So, she it certainly could have been a motive. And I've wondered if those calls to Jack were just BS and part of his alibi was did he make the calls to himself from the scene to make it cover his whole I was asleep and I didn't answer the phone story. Um,
yeah,
again, all alleged. I don't know. I'm just saying, I mean, it's certainly possible. Just like I think Xana did not call DoorDash, I think somebody used her phone and made it look like she was alive at 4 o'clock because I don't think she was. I think she was gone right after 2,
yeah,
and we all know that would be very easy to do if you had somebody's phone, you know.
absolutely. I totally agree with you 110% right there with what you just said. I believe the murders, that part did happen at 2 a.m. and then happened a little bit, later for Maddie and Kaylee.
Yeah, I think the last call to Jack, which was I think 2:56 a.m., I think that was right when they happened.
Yeah,
Right around there because if you watch the Banfield video, you see those figures running across the Banfield from the house toward the frat house at 3:12 or whatever that is. And there's your window of time because those 4chan posts, which I gotta say, I mean, the 4chan posts, I think, have much more realism in them than anybody wants to give it credit for. But
I
they said
agree.
that it happened in what was it, 19 minutes, including the run there and back. And if that's the case, then that would fit that window of time. And it sure is suspicious that those cops were there on the band field during those 19 minutes of that entire night. That's when they were there at the band field, was during those 19 minutes, because right after those kids ran through in the background.
Yeah,
Moments later, they were packing up and leaving. And if
I
they
know
were
that.
there doing some sort of alcohol enforcement, they would have been there all night. But yet they were only there. What are the odds of that? That
I know.
these cops would be 50 yards from a quadruple homicide in the 19 minutes that I think that this happened in, or at least the second part of it, which would have been Kaylee and Maddie. I do
I
agree with
know.
you that I think Xana and Ethan were earlier, and possibly not even in the home. Could have been done outside and brought in. They had all
Mhm.
kinds of time to play around. I mean, I've done podcasts about Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, the mobster hitman. He got the name the Iceman because he took his victims and froze them so that the police wouldn't be able to figure out when they were murdered because it would have thrown off the time of death. So how do we know that that's why that front door wasn't left wide open? How do we know every damn window in that house wasn't open in the middle of winter? So
Yeah,
that, or at the beginning of winter, I should say, in November, it's going to be cold in Idaho to
yeah.
throw off the time of death, you know,
And then
because they would have been there for that many hours, and the accuracy of that estimate diminishes as time goes on. So if Kathy Mabbitt didn't frolic over there until 5:30 p.m. the next day, which is the most absurd thing I've ever even heard of before, the coroner, not being the first person on the scene to pronounce them dead, shows up at 5:30 like
I
she had
know.
some other pressing something else important. Somebody came over for coffee, didn't want to leave.
Right.
I mean,
She had to take a
seriously.
shower. I
Yeah,
was like, that is the dumbest freaking thing I've
it
ever heard.
is. It is.
That
And
is
then
just,
Payne and that other guy, the other officer from Moscow, he got there at 4:30. I mean, I've heard that he was hunting with Chief Fry out of town. So okay, if that's the case, I get that. But Kathy
yeah,
Mabbitt, I mean, seriously, where was she? I mean, it just
I
seems so
know.
strange, And so if she got there at 5:30 and they claim that the murders happened at 4 a.m., I still think they were earlier, but let's go with their assumption, uh their
They're both
call.
they're BS.
13 and a half hours later, the accuracy of that estimate of time of death had to have been compromised, especially if that door we already know was wide open. And I also wonder, why was that heating and air conditioning place, or that business with their truck pulled up there the next day? Was there something wrong with the furnace? Did they disable the furnace so it wouldn't come back on, so that these
Oh,
bodies would get cold and they
that
would
makes sense.
throw off the time of death? I mean, they could have killed the pilot. They could have pulled the element out of it. I mean, there's 1,000 different things you could do to a furnace to disable it. I don't know. I mean, it certainly makes you wonder. It really does. And as we've,
Yeah.
talked about here, we've been going, it's an hour and 8 minutes, and we've just, I mean, I had a list of all the things I wanted to talk about, and we haven't even gone through them all yet. So,
I
but
know it.
that's what makes
I,
this fun. I mean, Idaho 4 is just me and AR, we could riff on this thing, me and Lucky. I mean, it's really the possibilities are endless with this case. But
for sure.
yeah,
What do
so
Pete, what do you think happened?
um I think it was an orchestrated event. I lean toward the drug angle. I lean toward that somebody did something. We've heard rumors that somebody flushed something down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possible. I think it was a series of events. I don't think it was any one thing. I think it was a series of events. And that fight at the frat house could have been the culmination of that. And I think I've heard rumor that Ethan knew what happened to Hudson Lindow, that he wasn't really drowned in that creek, that he was potentially waterboarded as like a hazing and then
Yeah.
posed in the creek there to make it look like that's how he passed. And he was going to go to the police. And that certainly would have set Loach off because he's the one allegedly that did that, according to rumor. Again, I don't know. I'm just saying allegedly.
Mhm.
And if that were the case, that would sure be a reason to get somebody upset. So I think it was a culmination of things, and I do feel that there were people that played a role. I think Bethany's role was to keep an eye at him at the party. I think Dylan's role was to stay at the house and make sure nobody came over, and if they were, get him out of there. And she was kind of the point person there at the house. I think everybody got there. It happened however it could have happened in two different waves, like we talked about, or one.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very possible they took all four of them in that living room and did it all there, right there in the living room, and then moved them into the bedrooms. I mean, who knows, right? But
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that multiple people were involved. I don't think it was just one. I think there's too many unanswered questions with all these characters to say that they weren't in some way, shape, or form involved. I mean, was Jack
Mhm.
Showalter truly just the guy that saw him before they got in that private, car and drove off? Or was he there to make sure they got in that car and drove off? You know, lots of
Yeah,
suspicion there. That grub truck video is fascinating. There
I
seems
know.
like there's some sort of the fixes in with Joe Vito. I mean, that guy is very suspicious. And I think that it was a group effort to have this happen. I do think that it was viewed. I do think that somebody videotaped what with phone, and it was a, I don't know about a pay-per-view, but I guarantee you, I mean, we've heard enough about the sick stuff that these fraternities do with each other, and Sigma Chi certainly no strangers to that. I would put nothing past them being behind something like that. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely.
I mean, you got that one guy looking at his phone at the band field, and the cop stopped him. The guy with the bushiest eyebrows on the face of the earth.
Oh yeah, that's oh, what
Yeah,
was it? Say
Saeed.
S A
Yeah,
Said.
Saeed.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
he's looking at his phone right at the time when all this is in the 19 minutes is he's looking at his phone. I mean, I know that kids look at their phones a lot, but this looked like more than just a passive scroll on Facebook. This looked like an active, like really looking at what was going on. And then some close ups. I know Huda London, like her or not, she did some close ups. Bubbly Waters has done some stuff where you can see it very suspicious what's on these phones when they were
for
looking
sure.
at them. So was this thing, broadcasted to this core group of sick individuals? You had all these Venmo payments, $6 Venmo payments going on between each other. What was that about? What
I
was
know,
the
that's so weird.
what was the Venmo payment from um what was her name? The girl that sent it to Liz Katovich that said the day before a
I
$6 Venmo payment, 3:30 a.m. in the memo. What was that
know.
about? Was that like her square in a Super Bowl of what time she thought this was going to happen? Or was that where I want you to meet me after it's done? I mean, like, who in the world knows? But I mean, it's certainly incredibly suspicious.
I
So,
know.
and
That is weird.
Jack Katovich on Twitter on Monday after this happened, best weekend ever. Ethan was one of his closest friends. Who in the world would say something like that on Twitter if one of your friends, one of your best friends, was horrifically murdered, unless you had some sort of sick involvement in it? I mean, honestly, I don't know what else to say about it.
I don't either. I think that that is, I know those kids acted like, even at the memorial, I just, you know, you're right. Those Venmo payments, were those drug related? Like, are those but you can't buy drugs for $6. You can't even buy a hit
Right.
of meth, I don't think, for $6.
Yeah. It
You
was
know,
strange, it was
or
just
$3
strange.
or whatever. Yeah, no, that is just weird.
Yeah, and they weren't even donating to Murder Metal Mayhem $6, the symbolic 666 thing, because I wasn't around then, so at least on YouTube I wasn't. But not to make fun, I'm just saying it's a
No,
lot
I know.
a lot of strange stuff, but I do appreciate you coming on to talk with me today. It was definitely very, very fun. I had a bunch of potential things to talk about in addition to this because I really didn't know how long this was going to go. Got about
Yeah.
minutes left here. Was there anything you wanted to say before I have a few
Um,
I wanted to put out?
well, I appreciate you too. I was like, when I got the email this morning, I was like, "Oh my gosh." I told my husband, I'm like, "You're never going to believe what happened." And I was like, just so stoked to be on with you. So, I
Cool.
do appreciate you with that. That was really, really cool. But in regards to the case, I would come on with you again, and we could discuss it, for sure
Okay.
another time. There's nothing that I can think of off the top of my head. I noticed your questions, and I had them in the back of my mind of what I would have, said or talked about, but nothing really stands out except I do have one question for you. What do you think about the Aryan Brotherhood? What do you think about that theory?
I really don't want to talk about them at all. I
Okay.
don't need somebody from that organization showing up on my front door, so I
Okay.
choose to not discuss them. So
Okay. And
I got nothing to say about that.
that's good. We'll keep it at that then. No, but the
Yeah,
theory, everything really just fits, and that's what makes this case so complicated.
it
And
is
why
very complicated.
why were Dylan and Bethany the only two that were actually left alive? I think that's a really
Yeah.
important question.
Oh yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question, is why were
Mhm.
they spared? Were they even there? I don't even think they were there.
No, I don't either.
I think they took off when all this went down and came back the next morning and played dumb. That's what I suggest has happened here.
Yes.
But yeah, if you guys are into true crime, you definitely want to check out me and AR's other channel, Darkness Visible True Crime. We talk about other cases other than Idaho 4. We do talk about Idaho 4, but we've got a wide range of things we're getting into. Some good stuff. Chris Watts, Delphi, Sarah Boone. I mean, there's all kinds of interesting cases out there. The Austin serial killer case, which is fascinating. I had that on the plate today, but I don't want to get started on that because, like I said, I wanted to keep this under 90 minutes. But if you're not a subscriber to that channel, please go over there. The link is in the description if you're watching this on the replay. But if you go to Darkness Visible True Crime, you'll get there and subscribe to that if you would. And if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please do that before you leave. Give it a like. I appreciate all you guys that showed up in the comments. I mean, you guys are amazing. We had a good turnout today, about 150 or so, which this
That's
was kind of
good.
an impromptu. I just decided to do this yesterday, so this was kind of a sudden thing, but I would
Yeah.
like to do this every Sunday. So if you like this, keep your eyes open and I'll put links and thumbnails up so you guys know when I'm doing them. So, but the Tuesday, me and AR are going to talk about a variety of cases. We're going to do 2 a week on the other channel. So you definitely want to check that out. And And I appreciate you guys very much. You guys have been really awesome with asking about how I'm doing with the health stuff, and I do feel better and trying to get back to, my normal routine, which was pretty, rigorous. So it may take me a minute to get to that, but I'm getting ready to start another book. So I've got a lot of things going on, but one step at a time. I'm not overdoing it. But again, thanks to the mods of Mayhem for keeping the trolls away, and thank you again, Ginger, for coming
Thank
on. Always good to
you.
have a nurse in the house. I mean, in case something were to happen to me, I mean, we've got a
Yes,
nurse.
yes, I
The
will help
nurses
you anytime.
the
Just ask.
nurses were amazing when I fought. I was in the hospital for 42 days, so
No,
I really needed those nurses, and there were some great ones. So you guys do good work, and I sure appreciate that. So
thank you. Well, I appreciate you too. I want you to know that I mean, your content is amazing and your storytelling is awesome. So just keep up the good work on your end too. So, and I thank you again. I really appreciate you having me. So it was really, really fun. Thank you.
you're welcome. And I'm going to tease something. I'm not going to tell anybody what this is about, but I've had this idea. She just brought up storytelling. I have an idea about taking a fiction story and a true crime story, and I won't tell you which one, but it could possibly be one that we talk about a lot here on Murder Metal Mayhem, and joining it and presenting a possible how it could have gone down in a fictionalized sort of way. So it
Oh, that's
it it,
interesting.
it may be in my next book, and once I get it done, I'm going to do an audio version of it, and I will play it here on the channel. But I think you guys will like it. It's kind of cool. It's got a little supernatural edge to it, but anybody that follows this particular case will know exactly who I'm alluding to, even though I wouldn't use real names. So I'll leave it there. But that's my next idea that I've got brewing in this bald head of mine. So
That sounds
uh,
amazing.
all right, guys. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you next Sunday. And appreciate you very much, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you later. Bye, guys.